Hi guys, Dr. Mary Rensel. Please like and subscribe so that others can find this. So what I like to do is share neuroscience strategies for the busy professional, especially women doctors. We have a lot of extra challenges in our career paths because there's so much gender inequity that is unfortunately persistent. I've been a doc for 31 years and it's lasting, all that darn gender inequity. So how can we navigate it and how can we stay productive and feel like we have a purpose and keep things exciting? Let's go. Let's talk about that a little bit. I want to share with you 3 ways that we can learn from athletes because athletes have figured out how to find that ideal performance state. And what can we learn from them when we're docs, like we're trying to navigate? We know that medicine is a high risk profession. The American Hospital Association board chair, John Halpert, just said it's a national emergency, the healthcare workforce. So I want to give you these 3 things to think about on what athletes have figured out, and if we can kind of use some of those to navigate medicine right now. Okay, so the first one, of course, because I love brains, is neuroscience based prioritization. What does that mean? Well, the athlete has figured out how to prioritize their training routines and recovery time, right? That's the thing that's missing these days in healthcare is recovery time. We just go, go, go. We have people work 10 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours, but we need to think about, pacing ourselves throughout our days like the athletes do. They know they can train really hard, but they also recover really hard, right? And in athletes, they also use competitions based on performance goals. So a lot of times in healthcare, we do that. We set goals, we set performance goals, we set something called OKRs, but we also have to think about the physical demands of setting those goals. And somewhere along the line, I think in healthcare, we just thought we're invincible, that we can just never sleep or never eat or never go to the bathroom, and just work 18 hours straight and we're all good, right? And we're not because the data shows that there's really high risk of burnout and unfortunately emotional distress. So, a recent Mayo Clinic My Wellbeing Index data set just came out in neurology. That's what I am, was one of the highest burned out professions, and the burnout was really high in pharmacists, very high in nurses, very high even in our students, our med students and our trainees. So we need to do something differently. So as women docs, of course, we always prioritize our patient care. If we also prioritize our professional development, like the athletes prioritize their performance goals. And we also prioritize personal life activities, right? So we make sure we're sleeping, we're eating, we're moving, we're keeping up with our friendships. And we want to think about the overall impact of our well-being. Because well-being, what is that? That's when I just saw a great definition of well-being, and it was from the World Health Organization. And they said when a society has well-being, they are resilient, so they can adjust to change. They can build their capacity to keep going, and they can transcend their challenges. They can be prepared to transcend their challenges. So I thought those are 3 great features of well-being. It's something we have to think about when we're defining our own well-being. Do we feel resilient? Can we bounce back after a work day? Do we feel like we have a capacity to change? And are we prepared to transcend the challenges that come up with healthcare regularly, right? So the athlete, what about cognitive rest and breaks? So the athlete knows to incorporate rest days into their training schedules. Healthcare just forgets about rest days sometimes. Sometimes we're on call in the hospital and we just go back to the normal week afterwards. Some people will work sevens and off sevens. It's great, right? So they worked and then they rested. But some just work and some just go those 12 or 18-hour shifts. It's nuts, right? Why don't they let pilots do that kind of stuff? We know rest matters, and the athletes have incorporated that. So, first is neuroscience based prioritization. What are our priorities? Our priorities are neuroscience well being. We want to make sure that we stay resilient, that we have a capacity to change, and that we have an ability to be prepared for all the challenges that are coming. And so that means we have to prioritize our own well being, our professional development, and of course, our work with our patients. Okay, second was cognitive rest and recovery. So the athletes, they incorporate rest days into their training schedules. They ensure adequate recovery physically and mentally after their performances. Sometimes you see them like with their music and they're really just kind of zoning, zoning out before, they're on, before they're, before they're competing, is what I'm trying to say. And so they have like used music as a way to emotionally regulate a little bit and to kind of rest a little bit before they're on. And at work, we need to do the same thing. So what can women docs do? We can schedule these 5 or 10 minute little micro breaks throughout our day, or even longer ones, please. So actually a lunch break, but even throughout the shifts, just these little teeny breaks, because even golfers or tennis players will do this even as they are, kind of setting up for the shot or preparing for the tennis serve. The really great tennis players will take 15 seconds while they're setting up their serve to either like play with the strings or, fix their hands or something. They are just giving their cognitive, just themselves a little cognitive break. And we can do that as we're putting the, our hands on the door handle before we go into a new patient room. We can say something like, let's just take a minute for a deep breath, or think about a beautiful scene in nature or someone you really love. That's just like cognitively just a little bit of a rest throughout the day. The third one is, so we had neuroscience-based prioritization, so please prioritize your brain. Second is cognitive rest and breaks, just like athletes do. And then the third one is mindful time blocking. So let's jump into that a little bit. So the athletes will have specific times for training, for recovery, and for competing. And they don't mix it all up. They're not like competing and resting and breaking and competing and recovering. And, they have times they're training for a few hours, then they rest for a few hours. So when we look at our schedule, a lot of the time management gurus and productivity gurus will say to time block. So we'll say, okay, this is the time I'm with patients. This is the time I'm going to take a little break. This is the time I'm going to do my charts or my emails. And so if we time block rather than like doing a million things at once, we can get more done. You can also time block your administrative duties, your personal commitments. If you have to order the groceries or go get the groceries or pick up the kids, you can kind of time block that throughout your day. And what you're trying to do is optimize your energy levels for what really matters. So you, of course, want to time block your really important focus work for when you are like, if you're a morning person, you want to time block it then. If you're more of a night person, you time block it then. So the athletes, of course, always time block. They don't mix everything up. They're very intentional with their time and energy, and we can also learn from that. Okay, so we went over three things that us women docs can learn from the really high level athletes to hit our ideal performance levels. We can mindfully time block. We can cognitively take rest and breaks, and we can prioritize our neuroscience, our brains, right? You got this. All right, so why don't you put in the comments which one you like the best and which one you might try this week. Okay, so good to see you. Thanks, and hit like and subscribe, please, so you can get the next ones and more people can find it. All right, thanks, guys. See you later.